At 70 years old, I thought I had seen it all. Life's joys, its sorrows, and the quiet struggles that come with aging. But nothing could have prepared me for the day my body betrayed me in the most humiliating way possible. It was a chilly Tuesday morning when I decided to visit the local market, a routine task that once felt as natural as breathing. My legs, still weak from an accident months prior, gave out without warning. One moment I was reaching for fresh vegetables. The next I was sprawled on the cold concrete floor, my cane clattering uselessly beside me. The pain shot through my leg like fire. But what stung more was the pitying gaze of strangers who hurried past, pretending not to notice. A young woman finally stopped to help, her voice trembling as she asked if I needed an ambulance. I declined, ashamed of appearing so frail. As I limped home, every step felt like a battle against gravity itself. By the time I reached my apartment, sweat drenched my shirt and my vision blurred. For a fleeting second, I thought I might collapse right there in the hallway. That night, alone in my tiny bedroom, I cried, not just from the physical agony, but from the crushing realization that I was no longer the man I used to be. When I moved in with my children after the accident, I convinced myself it would be temporary, a brief respite while I regained strength. But temporary stretched into months, and each passing day chipped away at my sense of self-worth. Their homes were spacious and modern, yet they felt suffocating to me. At first, I tried to adapt, to smile during dinner even though I ate alone in my room while they laughed together in the living room. Nights were the hardest. The silence pressed down on me like a weight, and sleep became an elusive stranger. I'd lie awake for hours staring at the ceiling, replaying memories of happier times when my wife and I ran our own household. Those nights filled me with a profound loneliness, a gnawing emptiness that no amount of material comfort could fill. Once, around midnight, I heard my son whisper to his wife, "Dad's snoring keeps waking up the kids." His words cut deeper than any knife. Was this how they saw me now? An inconvenience? A burden? Desperate for independence, I hired a caregiver, hoping it would ease some of the strain on my children and on myself, but fate seemed determined to test me further. The first caregiver lasted 3 days before quitting, claiming the meals I provided were too meager. "How can you expect me to work here when there's barely enough food?" she snapped, slamming the door behind her. Her departure left me shaken. Another caregiver followed, then another, each leaving under similar circumstances. Each rejection felt like a slap in the face, reinforcing the cruel truth. I wasn't just old, I was undesirable, a relic of a bygone era unworthy of care or compassion. My savings dwindled with each failed attempt, and guilt consumed me, knowing I relied on my children's modest contributions to make ends meet. Then came the turning point, the day I met the young couple at the small mart near my apartment. They seemed kind-hearted, always offering to carry my groceries despite their own obvious exhaustion. Over time, we formed a tentative friendship, exchanging pleasantries whenever our paths crossed. One afternoon, as I waited for my order, I overheard them arguing about money. Their voices were hushed but laced with desperation. "We can't keep going like this," the husband said. "If we don't find a solution soon, we'll have to move back to the countryside." Something inside me stirred, a mix of empathy and inspiration. After much deliberation, I approached them with a proposal. 200,000 won per month in exchange for light housekeeping and meal preparation. To my relief and theirs, they accepted. Yet their initial hesitation revealed their pride. They didn't want charity. Are you sure about this? The wife asked, tears welling in her eyes. We don't want to take advantage of your generosity. Her sincerity touched me deeply. Here were two souls struggling just as I was, yet willing to extend kindness despite their hardships. Together we forged a bond unlike any other, a lifeline for both parties. The stroke came without warning, a cruel twist of fate that struck me down on an otherwise ordinary Tuesday morning. One moment I was reaching for my teacup, and the next my entire right side collapsed as though it had been severed from my body. The world tilted violently, and I crashed to the floor, my feeble cries for help swallowed by the silence of my empty home. My grandson found me hours later, his face pale with panic as he called for an ambulance. At the hospital, doctors delivered their grim prognosis: partial paralysis on my right side, likely permanent. The words hit me like a hammer blow, shattering any illusion of independence I still clung to. What followed were months of grueling rehabilitation, each day a battle against my own uncooperative limbs. Physical therapy became my new prison, where nurses prodded me to lift weights I could barely feel in my hand or take steps that felt like climbing mountains. Every movement was agony, every failure a fresh wound to my pride. Yet, even amid this torment, I forced myself to endure, clinging to the hope that I might regain some semblance of autonomy. But deep inside, despair gnawed at me, whispering that I would never again be the man I once was. While my body slowly healed, my spirit faced another kind of assault, one far more brutal and relentless. It began one evening when my son-in-law returned home drunk, his bloodshot eyes glinting with malice. He accused my daughter of neglecting him because she spent too much time worrying about me. Before I could intervene, he lunged at her, his fists landing with sickening thuds. My granddaughter screamed, hiding behind the couch while I sat frozen in my wheelchair, utterly powerless. How could I protect them when I couldn't even stand? That night, as my daughter sobbed quietly in her room, I cursed my frailty, my uselessness. This wasn't just violence. It was a systematic erasure of her dignity happening under my roof, and I was impotent to stop it. The abuse continued sporadically, each episode carving deeper scars into our family's already fragile foundation. Once, during a particularly vicious outburst, my grandson stormed into the house, shouting at his father to leave his mother alone. But instead of stopping, my son-in-law turned his rage on the boy, leaving him bruised and humiliated. Watching my family crumble before my eyes filled me with a rage so potent it burned through my veins. Yet there was nothing I could do but sit and watch. Desperation drove me to lean heavily on my grandson, who reluctantly agreed to help care for me after my release from the hospital. But even this act of kindness came at an hiatus. One evening, as he helped me bathe, a task neither of us relished, I overheard him arguing with his girlfriend over the phone. I can't just abandon him, he snapped, his voice trembling with frustration. But you're always busy with him, she shot back, her tone sharp with accusation. What about us? When do I get to see you? Their argument ended abruptly, but the tension lingered, thick and suffocating. Later that night, he confided in me, tears brimming in his eyes. Grandpa, I'm sorry, but I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this. His words cut deeper than any blade, forcing me to confront the painful truth. I was tearing apart the life of the very person trying to hold mine together. Still, I begged him to stay, promising that things would improve, even as doubt clawed at my chest. Financially, I was drowning. The measly 1 million I had saved over decades felt like grains of sand slipping through my fingers. With each passing day, the reality of my situation grew clearer. I couldn't afford a nursing home, let alone hire full-time help. Meals became simpler, almost monotonous, as I rationed what little money remained. Each trip to the market felt like a gamble. Would I have enough left to cover next month's expenses? Nights were the hardest. Sleep eluded me, replaced by endless spirals of worry. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying memories of happier times when my wife and I dreamed of peaceful golden years. Now those dreams seemed laughably naive. Yet despite everything, the physical pain, the emotional toll, the crushing weight of poverty, I refused to give up entirely. Somewhere within me, a flicker of hope remained, stubborn and defiant. If Grandfather Park could find a solution, why couldn't I? It was this fragile thread of optimism that kept me tethered to life, urging me to search for answers even when all seemed lost. The young couple who had become such an integral part of my life, transforming it from one of solitude to shared joy, were facing their own storm, a financial tempest that threatened to tear apart the fragile stability we had built together. One bitterly cold winter morning, as frost clung stubbornly to every surface and icy winds howled through the streets, I overheard them arguing again at the small mart where they worked. Their voices were hushed but laced with desperation, each word cutting through the biting chill like shards of glass. "We can't keep going like this," the husband whispered hoarsely, clutching his hands together for warmth. "If we don't find more money soon, we'll lose everything. The rent, the baby's medicine." His voice trailed off, choked by emotion. The wife nodded silently, tears streaming down her face, her breath visible in the freezing air. It was then I realized just how precarious their situation truly was. They weren't merely struggling, they were drowning, caught between mounting debts and dwindling hope. That day, as they helped me carry my groceries upstairs, I noticed the way their movements lacked their usual vigor, their smiles forced and brittle. My heart ached for them, knowing that even the modest sum I paid them might not be enough to stave off disaster. Meanwhile, Grandpa Kim's story took a darker turn, one that left me shaken to my core. During one of our rare phone calls, he confided in me about a harrowing incident involving his daughter. She had reached her breaking point after years of enduring relentless abuse from her husband. On a frigid night when snow blanketed the ground and silence enveloped the world, she attempted to take her own life. Her son found her unconscious in the bathroom, an empty bottle of pills beside her. The boy screamed for help, his voice piercing the stillness of the night, waking neighbors who rushed to assist. Emergency services arrived just in time to save her, but the emotional scars ran deeper than any physical wound. When Grandpa Kim recounted this to me, his voice trembled with anguish. "I failed her," he said, choking back sobs. "She needed someone to protect her, and all I could do was sit there useless." His guilt was palpable, a heavy weight pressing down on him. He vowed to fight harder, to find a way out of their nightmare, but the memory of that night haunted him, a reminder of how close they had come to losing everything. And then there was the weather, a cruel accomplice in our struggles. The harsh winters seemed intent on testing what little resilience we had left. For me, venturing outside became a Herculean task. Each trip to the market felt like navigating an Arctic wasteland. My legs, already weakened by age and injury, protested violently against the cold, threatening to give out beneath me. More than once I slipped on patches of ice, landing hard on the unforgiving pavement. One particularly brutal day, as I limped home after collecting my groceries, a sudden gust of wind knocked me off balance. I fell, my cane skittering away across the icy sidewalk. Passers-by hurried past, unwilling or unable to help, leaving me stranded in the freezing cold until the young couple from the mart happened upon me. They bundled me up in blankets and escorted me home, their faces etched with worry. "You shouldn't go out alone anymore," the wife pleaded, her eyes filled with concern. But staying indoors wasn't much better. The lack of proper heating turned my apartment into a refrigerator, forcing me to layer myself in blankets just to stay warm. For Grandpa Kim, the weather compounded his already overwhelming challenges. His paralyzed right side made movement excruciatingly slow, and the icy conditions outside rendered even short trips unbearable. One evening during a blizzard, he needed urgent medical attention, but couldn't call for help because his phone battery had died. His grandson, delayed by the storm, arrived hours later, frantic with worry. By then, Grandpa Kim was shivering uncontrollably, his frail body succumbing to hypothermia. The incident underscored the fragility of his existence, a stark reminder of how quickly things could spiral out of control. Even routine tasks like grocery shopping became monumental feats. Once, while attempting to retrieve a delivery order left outside his door, he slipped on melting snow inside his foyer, cracking his head against the wall. Blood trickled down his temple as he lay there dazed and helpless until the caregiver arrived and tended to him. These incidents piled up, each one chipping away at his sense of dignity and independence. Through these trials, I began to see a pattern, a cruel cycle of hardship that seemed determined to test us all. The young couple's financial struggles, Grandpa Kim's family tragedy, and the relentless assault of nature itself. It was as if the universe conspired to remind us of our vulnerabilities. Yet amidst the chaos, glimmers of hope persisted. The couple continued to support me despite their own troubles, their kindness unwavering even as they teetered on the brink of collapse. Grandpa Kim, too, refused to surrender, clinging to the belief that solutions existed if only he searched hard enough. And though the winters raged on, we adapted, finding ways to endure. We learned to lean on one another, to share burdens too heavy to bear alone. In those moments of connection, I found solace, a reminder that no matter how bleak things seemed, humanity's capacity for compassion could shine through even the darkest storms. Night after night, Grandpa Park and Grandpa Kim lay awake, their minds consumed by relentless anxiety. For Park, the darkness amplified his fears of becoming a burden, each creak of the floorboard reminding him of his fragile independence. His hands trembled as he clutched the blanket, visions of grocery trips ending in collapse haunting him. Meanwhile, Kim's sleepless nights were tormented by guilt, his daughter's cries echoing in his mind while his savings dwindled to nothing. Both men stared at the ceiling, praying for dawn, yet dreading another day of struggle. The loneliness that engulfs the elderly is not just a fleeting emotion, it's a suffocating abyss that consumes them whole. For Grandpa Park, those sleepless nights were filled with an unrelenting sense of abandonment, as though society had turned its back on him entirely. Even in public spaces like markets or parks, he often felt invisible. Cashiers avoided eye contact. Strangers hurried past without acknowledgement, and neighbors who once greeted him warmly now barely recognized his existence. Once, during a particularly harsh winter storm, he slipped outside his apartment building, while trying to retrieve a delivery package. Passers-by walk by, some glancing at him briefly before moving on, leaving him lying there for nearly 20 minutes until the young couple from the mart found him shivering and bruised. This moment crystallized the painful truth. Society no longer sees its elders as valuable members, but as burdens to be ignored. Similarly, Grandpa Kim's struggles highlighted generational conflicts within families. His son-in-law's abusive behavior wasn't just personal cruelty, it was emblematic of a broader disregard for the elderly. During one family gathering, a rare occurrence meant to celebrate Lunar New Year, the younger generation openly mocked older traditions, dismissing them as outdated. Why do we even bother with these rituals? One nephew scoffed, rolling his eyes when Grandpa Kim attempted to share stories about their ancestors. The room fell silent, save for awkward laughter as Kim sat frozen, humiliated. These moments underscored how disconnected modern families had become from their roots, leaving elders feeling irrelevant and alienated. On a societal level, indifference toward the aging population manifested in countless ways. When Grandpa Park visited a local community center seeking advice on senior care programs, he was met with apathy. Staff members shuffled papers absently, offering vague responses like, "We'll look into it," only to never follow up. Meanwhile, advertisements promoting luxury retirement homes flooded television screens, catering exclusively to affluent seniors while ignoring those living paycheck to paycheck. One day, after overhearing two teenagers joke about an elderly man struggling to cross the street, "He's so slow, why doesn't he just stay home?" Grandpa Kim realized how deeply ingrained ageism had become. Society didn't merely neglect its elders, it actively ridiculed them. These experiences painted a grim picture of what it means to grow old today. Loneliness isn't merely a personal plight, it's a systemic failure fueled by generational divides and societal neglect. Yet amidst this bleakness, both grandfathers clung to hope, forging connections where possible and reminding themselves and us that dignity in old age should never be negotiable. Their journeys serve as urgent calls to action. We must confront our biases, bridge generational gaps, and create communities that honor every stage of life.